Welcome everyone. I'm Linda Benson on behalf of the Clallam County League of Women Voters. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We believe that democracy works when people are informed voters, which you all will be after tonight. So we're really glad that you came. Just a reminder about your cell phones, if you could silence those if you haven't done that yet. And we have a lot of centennial plans that are coming up next year. It's the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote. So you can always go on our website and find out what we're up to. We're going to be doing a lot of fun things next year to celebrate that. So tonight I will introduce Theresa Tetreau, who is our moderator, and from here on out she'll be in charge. Thank you.
All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's forum, and a big thank you goes to the City of Port Angeles for allowing us to use the council chambers tonight. We'll start this evening's forum with candidates for the Board of Directors for the Port Angeles School District, and then we'll follow with the Board of Commissioners for Olympic Medical Center, and we'll also be using OMC as we progress through the evening. Our timers this evening are Joan Cotta and Rebecca Miller, and they're here in the front row. Their job will be to hold up cards to help us all stay on track and help the speakers stay within their time limits. So as Linda mentioned about the phones, another thing I want to make sure people are aware of is that it's the League's policy to not allow any video or audio recording of the forums unless it's been authorized in advance by the League. But thanks to our videographer, Tim Bry, who's in the back and is recording this event, you'll be able to watch it online, and we'll have a link to the recording on the League's website within the next few days. You can see the web address on your agenda, and then it's also here on the in front of us. As our other forums take place over the next couple of weeks, recordings of those events will be available as well. So now if everybody has their cell phones off and cameras and any other noise makers, I should also mention that if anybody needs a listening device, those are available. If you'd like one, please raise your hand and a League member will bring one to you. Is everybody good? Another thing, did everybody get an agenda when they came in? If not, if you want to raise your hand, we'll get you one of those as well. Okay, a few housekeeping things. In the event of an emergency, you'll need to exit through the doors behind you at the back of the room and then out through the lobby. Restrooms are down the hall and to my right. Let's see. Don't want to repeat some of the things Linda already went over here. If you do have questions about the League and would like more information, there on the membership table as you came in out in the lobby, there is some literature that you're welcome to take. There's also some literature from some of the candidates available there as well. So with all of that, let's get started with our first panel of candidates. The Port Angeles School District consists of 5 elected directors and 2 student representatives. 3 seats are up for election this year. There is only 1 candidate for 2 of those seats, position 4 and 5. The only contested race is for position 3, and these candidates are here with us this evening. School board members are elected at large by all of the voters in the school district, and they served 4-year terms. In the order they filed for office, we'll ask each candidate to make an opening statement of no more than 3 minutes. Following the opening remarks, it's your turn. Audience members may pose questions for one or both candidates. You'll have 30 seconds to ask your question, and the candidates will have 1 minute to answer. I'll then offer each candidate the opportunity for a rebuttal. Rebuttals must be no longer than 1 minute. Keep these time limits in mind and keep your eye on the timer so you'll know when the time is up. League volunteers have index cards and pencils for you so you can write down your questions in advance if you'd like. Raise your hand if you'd like a card. You may address your question to a particular candidate or to both candidates. However, both candidates will be given the opportunity to answer all of the questions. We'll give everyone in the audience the chance to ask a question before taking follow-ups or multiple questions from the same person. When we're finished, we'll give each candidate up to 2 minutes for closing remarks, and this will happen in the reverse order from which they filed. So, candidates, we've asked you to introduce yourselves in your 3-minute or less opening statement by covering the following points. First, tell us why you are running for the school board. Second, what are your qualifications to be on the school board? And third, what do you see as the major issue currently facing the Port Angeles School District? And if elected, how would you address it? So let me remind you again, candidates, to keep your eye on our timers so you can gauge your time as you speak. And let's hear first from Katie Marks.
Okay, good evening. My name's Katie Marks, and I'm running for school board position number 3. And as the only candidate with children currently enrolled in the Port Angeles School District, I have a high school junior and a son that's in the elementary school. I believe that parents need to be present on the board. And I will bring the essential parent perspective. I've seen the strengths and challenges over the last 11 years at every level of the school. I have the privilege of focus as a parent. As an active community member of 20 years and a long-time volunteer with schools and sports, I have the proven ability to foster collaboration. In my professional career, I serve as the Director of College Analytics and Institutional Research at Peninsula College. As data analyst and researcher, I have the expertise to make data-informed decisions. I have the knowledge and experience using data to ensure progress and student success, and I will bring this expertise to the board. The school district has set goals, and I echo these goals, to prioritize advocacy, accountability, and achievement. To me, advocacy looks like effective policies that close the equity gap. Every student in the Port Angeles School District should have the same opportunity to access education and enrichment. I will advocate to continue to build upon the great career and technical education programs. I will foster open communication between schools, parents, and the community. I will advocate to increase the capability of all students. In terms of the second goals of accountability, I will prioritize transparency in budget and decision making. I will ensure the reserves are healthy by being a good steward of taxpayers' money. Additionally, we have to be accountable to our students and family by providing quality, functional infrastructure. It's been over 10 years since Port Angeles identified the urgent facility needs, and it's time to take action. I support a levy for capital projects and for renovations and rebuilding. My third goal is achievement. I believe we are achieving school success when all students are able to reach their potential. I see 2 important pieces: fostering academic excellence and getting students academically ready by meeting the social and emotional needs of all students. You are here because you are invested in the future of Port Angeles, and I believe successful schools build a healthy economy and community. Join me and make this happen. Thanks.
Thank you. And now Arwen Rice.
Hello, my name's Arwen Rice. I spent 17 years as a parent in 8 school districts. I saw special ed, I saw regular ed, I saw gifted education, dealt with all of these, and I dealt with all 8 school districts in one way or another to fight for my children. My daughter graduated from Port Angeles High School in 2015 after spending her 4 years in high school there. And what I recognized during that time was that the school district is a unicorn and it doesn't know it. By unicorn, that means that it's something that just doesn't exist anymore. It's most school districts you go to, they have cut all of their vocational programs. Our school district has strong vocational programs. Most districts have cut the performing arts. This district has an amazing performing arts program. We have both traditional and modern vocational education. That needs to be protected. I then spent 10 years as a reporter. I covered 12 different school districts at one point. At other times, I covered other districts. I saw the good, the bad, the ugly. All I could think that whole time is I can do better. There were good board members, and there were some board members that, frankly, I just wanted to go up and explain things to them because they were not understanding what they were being told. I thought it was time that instead of sitting back, and I would listen to both sides. I would hear this side, I would hear that side, and instead of making a judgment, my job was to sit down and explain both sides. It's really amazing what you can learn when you actually listen to both sides. You may not agree with both sides, but you learn. What I want to do is I want to be that person who can listen and actually make those judgments of where does this need to go. I really want to keep the vocational programs strong. I want to keep the sciences programs strong. I want to make sure that the arts programs remain strong. I'm here for the kids. Because of my children, I got to meet these younger generations. I got to really get to know the young millennials. I really got to know the, what do they call them now, the iGen. I got to know these kids, and they are amazing. What you hear about them, that's a few bad apples. These kids are stunning. I want to give them every chance to make this world over and fix it. They're heading that way. They really want to do it. I think they can if we give them the tools. And I want to help give them that tools. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, candidates. Next, we'll take as many questions as possible from you, the audience. Once again, all candidates will have an opportunity to respond to all questions, even those directed at a specific candidate. Candidate responses will be limited to 1 minute per question. I would expect there will be approximately 45 minutes for audience questions and candidate responses, but this is just an estimate. Could go a little bit less or more. We apologize in advance, though, if we don't have enough time for your question to be asked. You may have 30 seconds to pose your question, and the candidates will have up to a minute to answer. Please come to the microphone and be prepared with your question. When I recognize you, please give your name before you ask your question. If you are unable to come to the mic, you may write down your question and pass it to a league volunteer. Be sure to put your name on the card and be sure to write legibly. One of our volunteers will read the question that comes in on the cards, but we won't read any questions without names. If we run out of time before you get your question answered, we have asked all of the candidates to remain after the forum so that you may speak with them directly. So let's go ahead and get started, and I will kick off this first part of our forum with a question, and this is for both of you, and you both sort of touched on a little bit, but this is two-part. First, tell us something that the Port Angeles School District does really well to support educators and students, and then two, tell us something they can or should be doing better. And Katie, you started first, so Arwen, we'll let you answer first this time.
I already spoke of what they're doing well, but there's more to it than that. Almost every year, if not every year, I haven't actually looked through the history, students from this district are allowed, they get to go to Yale, they get to go to Ivy Leagues, they get to go to Cal. They clearly meet the qualifications for the amazing universities out there. Something's going right. You don't get kids going to those schools every year unless you're doing something right. However, there's also kids that it's failing. Kids who are a little different. Kids who are socially awkward. Kids who are different in one way or another. Not only are they being treated badly by their peers, but they're also being treated badly sometimes by the teachers, and they don't even realize they're doing it. That's why I joined the district's policy group, trying to put together a program to help these kids and train the teachers.
Okay, thank you. And Katie, same question.
Hi. Thank you, Theresa, for the question. Engaging students is what the school does really well at. Keeping them engaged is how you get to higher graduation rates, right? So the career and technical programs, the wide variety that they have, the incredible teachers that they have, and then engagement is also in their strings program. I personally have my kids in the strings program. I think it's amazing. Any of the clubs and sports, engagement is particularly important in student success, and I think the schools do a great job of that. What they could do better, we're talking about facilities. Our facilities are the number one priority. I'll talk about it later in the evening, but I feel that our facilities are where we're going next. We need to pass the levy, and this is truly important.
Thank you. Okay. And okay, each get an opportunity for a rebuttal if you'd like. So Arwen? No? Okay. And Katie? Okay. All right, so we'll take questions from the audience then. Don't be shy.
My name is Jessica Hackett. I have a two-part question regarding something that Ms. Marks, you touched on, the social and emotional needs of students. How do you both think that the school district can do a better job in meeting the social, emotional, and financial needs of underprivileged students? And to that end, how do you think we can do a better job of analyzing performance of both students and teachers, taking that into account?
Thank you. She addressed it
Okay.
to Kate.
It looks like my microphone was still on. So social and emotional needs, I think they're incredibly important. How are we going to address them? Addressing them is you can bring students up by the facilities. Improving the facilities will make the students feel like they're more important, raising them up to feel, when they're in the schools. I also think that professional development with our teachers when it comes to mental health first aid is become a crucial part of the tools for a teacher in the classroom. There are first responders, and I think that this is absolutely essential. As far as analyzing the performance, I think that what you're really getting at is the equity gaps that you'll see in the diversity groups as well as in the student special populations that we have in our school. And this is something I'm very particularly associated with up at the college. There are gaps that need to be closed.
Thank you. Okay, and Arwen, same question?
About a year ago, I joined the superintendent's equity team. About a year ago, I joined the superintendent's equity team. We've spent the last year putting together a way to help teachers learn how better to connect with their students, to realize their needs. There's a story of a young member of the Elwha tribe here who they do not look their elders in the eyes and was punished for not meeting the teacher's eyes when he talked to them. Things like that, as well as whether it's racial or LGBT or any other group, kids who are just different. So I am already actually working on this, and I have been for a year. As far as how to measure this, that's another thing that we're working on the equity team is It's still in early stages. We're just starting to meet. Because of work, I had to miss this current last meeting, but this is our next project, and we're looking into that.
Okay, thank you. And you both have the option for a rebuttal. Katie?
Sure. My experience at the college on the equity group is bringing the data to them, the dashboards that I've made that allow them to actually see the equity groups between the different diversity groups or the student groups. We look at this from faculty perspective. We look at this from the advisor perspective. These are all ways of just starting to understand what this is, like the first step, and this is what the school is doing right now. They have chosen the equity disparities as the theme this year for our school district, and I completely support this. It's a lot. Looking at the data is just the first step, and then again, it's training the staff and the teachers and understanding how to go forward next once they have that information. That's all.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, you're good. You're good. Okay, sorry. Any other questions from the audience?
Okay. Yes, I'm Norma Turner, and as we all know, the school year is set on when kids had to go work in the fields in the summertime, and now they don't go in the fields and work anymore. So would you please discuss the pros and cons of year-round school and whether or not you would work towards that? Given the academic loss that kids go through at the summers, it's probably worth considering. Thank you.
Okay, Arwen?
There's a lot of tradition that gets stuck in people's heads. Every time I have been in a district where this has been proposed, a change to year-round schooling, there's been a lot of parental pushback. They have traditions, they go on summer vacations, and they don't want to miss that. It also requires a complete change in how to set up programs for childcare, after-school childcare, vacation childcare. I spent the last summer working at a summer camp. The entire summer is dedicated to kids and education out in the woods, and it's a really amazing program. Is year-round schooling good? Does it work? Yes, it does. There's a lot of give and take. This is one of those issues that I don't take aside. I think there's advantages both ways. I think there's disadvantages both ways, and it's a matter of figuring out how to work it either way.
Thanks. Okay, Katie, same question.
Thank you, Norma, for the question. The summer slip, that's what you call that, is when the students leave in the spring and they come back in the fall, and their math and their English scores or their reading scores actually are lower than when they were there in the spring. As a full-time working mom, I can understand the need for a year-round schedule. I save up my entire vacation time so I can take it off in the summer with my kids. I love that time with them, but I could also see that some activities and some programs in the summertime, or some starting earlier or ending later, I don't know yet, but I have seen some research reports on it, and I would probably need a little more research, but I think that it's worth looking into as well. Thank you, Norma, for the question.
Okay, and Arwen, rebuttal? Okay, and anything else, Katie? Good. Okay, Catherine, you're up.
Hello, I'm Catherine Copas. My question is for both candidates. Our community has historically been pretty resistant to funding bonds and levies for capital improvements for our public schools, including a lot of effort for that on behalf of the PACE group for that last bond that failed. What would you do differently this time around to get a levy passed to improve our schools?
Okay, Katie, you're first.
Thank you, Catherine, for the question. This is a challenge to be solved by the entire community as a whole. It takes people to care about our school system. Added value to the community with students, teachers visually involved in the community, and with businesses engaged with our community and technical education programs is essential for us. It's also, the idea of keeping our schools open at night, keep the lights on, allow the schools to be a part of the facilities for the community needs, right? So this is the beginning of the campaign. We already have a levy that's possibly going to get passed by the school board before I'll ever, Arwen or I will ever get into that position. And I think that at this point, the campaign continues. This is a marketing campaign. This is an educating the community, getting the community to come to the school. And there's a school tour this Friday if you would like to come. It's open to everyone at the middle school.
Thank you. And Arwen?
I had the fortune or misfortune of being the schools reporter for the high school levy. I watched as rumors went around that the new school would not include vocational programs. Well, I knew that it was going to include and expand on the vocational, but people had to say otherwise. I don't know why. I reported it, people didn't read it. A lot of misinformation went out. The last time with the middle school levy, I watched as, again, misinformation spread. The only way to battle that is to get that information out there in ways that people will listen. I discovered to my sadness that people don't read a full newspaper. They only read the headlines and a few paragraphs. We need to get that information out there and to explain what actually is being offered and stop the misinformation.
Okay, and Katie, rebuttal? You're good? Okay. And Arwen, anything else? No?
Hi, I'm Mary Wegman. A procedure question. Can I ask 2 quick questions or just one?
Just one, and then if there's any time at the end, you can ask a second question.
Okay. My first question is I'm a retired psychologist. There's tons of research that shows that high school children do better if their entry into school is a delayed start due to the way their biological rhythms work. The entire state of Minnesota has gone this way and has seen great changes in the number of students that actually graduate. Would you consider seriously looking at a late start for the high school students?
You're first, Arwen.
I absolutely would consider it. I've also seen that research. It's pretty clear that high school students do better when they have a later start. The challenge is the after-school activities and work. It gets dark at 4:30 here in the winter. Anything they do outside has to be provided with lights, and it gets very complicated. If we can come up with a way to address the issues of dealing with missed class for their travel, for sports, because there's no place close for them to play. Absolutely, if you can figure out a way that makes sense, I would support a late start for the high school and possibly the middle school.
Okay, thank you. And Katie, same question?
Mary, I needed to clarify, was that a late start in kindergarten or a late start in the day for the students?
Late start in the day for high school students.
For high school students, okay, thank you. The late start in the day for the high school student, I have a high school student. She would really like to sleep in. She functions better when she wakes up later. I also don't know, I've read the research on it. If, just a half hour later, an hour later, allows them, an hour later allows them to sleep for 30 minutes more. They're more functioning. I completely agree with this. I also struggle to, and the research also shows that they go to bed at the same time, so that's positive. My only issue is how are they going to put all their homework and activities into that span if they're sleeping in and not getting up earlier. We've got some issues with our high school students right now not having enough time to take PE, and it's a required credit. So.
Okay, Arwen, did you want to rebuttal? Okay, and Katie? Good.
Cindy Kelly, there was a House bill passed 1599 that delinked state assessment from graduation. I just want to get your opinion. If you support this bill or not, it will create more pathways for kids to be successful.
Okay, and Katie's first this time.
I guess I didn't hear the question. Could I get it again, please? No.
Are you supportive of House Bill 1599, which delinks a state assessment from graduation? Delinks state assessment from graduation. Delinking state assessment from graduation, so they will have other pathways than able to graduate, although they won't have to pass the state assessment.
So the state assessment gets started in the students in their sophomore year. If they pass the state assessment, that qualifies for their graduation. So they have many times to actually, if they're not taking it in their sophomore year, to actually take it in alternative time frames. So delinking, I think that I'm going to ask my friend Kate to actually write that down, because I'm not familiar with it. Offhand, I'm not sure how I fall on that one. I don't have enough information. I don't have a problem with state assessment, yet I don't know if it's necessary to make alternative pathways for students at this point, so without more information. Thank you.
Okay, and Arwen, same question?
Delinking, there are a lot of students who know the material, but they have test anxiety, they have other issues with testing. It is an issue. A lot of kids are perfectly capable but cannot pass the test. A lot of tests, you hear a lot about teaching to the test, and kids aren't learning as much. They're memorizing what's going to be on the test. We do need a way to measure to make sure the kids know what they need to know. State testing has never been the answer. State testing was invented originally to identify when kids might need a little more help. Okay, they're a little weak in this area, let's work on that. It was never meant to be a graduation requirement. That was part of this big push to punish teachers for their kids who aren't succeeding. So unless there's something in the bill that, a poison pill within the bill, yes, I would support it.
Time. Thank you. And rebuttal, Katie? And close to the mic, please.
So as far as kids struggling with the test, I totally agree, but I also know that they allow kids to take it in the time frame that they need to take it in. They're also allowed to have it on audio, because there's a lot of reading involved. These are things that can be worked out with the school for these tests. Standardized tests, those are one thing that you can keep in mind with students that are struggling with tests. As far as, never mind, thanks.
Okay, and Arwen?
The things that they can do to help kids with the tests, the listening, that requires a 504 or an IEP, and many of the kids who struggle on tests don't have one of these, whether their parents simply did not want to get involved with all the paperwork that it requires, or because they don't meet the requirements. A lot of kids fall through these cracks. They're not severe enough to need these plans, but they struggle anyway. So because of the kids who do fall through the cracks, those are the kids I want to fight for.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other questions from the audience? No, got mine.
So my name is Ellen Fetchett, and my question is, could you please both do some brainstorming about what could be done to address the levy problem that was raised earlier, how to promote passing? What ideas, just off the top, could you begin to think about and tell us? Thank you.
Okay, and Arwen, you're first this round.
If any of you spend any time on Facebook or any other social media, you'll find that this community really, really operates in about a dozen Facebook groups. They're nonstop. Some of them are kind of ugly. The district needs to get in there, get into the conversation, let people know what's actually going on rather than what the rumors are. That's where people are talking. People don't meet in coffee shops anymore to talk about things. They meet online. School district needs to be there, not just with press releases, but also with someone who can go in there and discuss it and answer people's questions and kill the bad rumors. I'm also concerned about, I spoke to a local business owner who said he won't vote for any levy ever because he never sees the teachers in his store. And he will never support the school district. Something needs to be done to talk to these people. That I'm not quite sure what.
Okay, Katie?
So the key is getting the community to come into the schools. So just last week, I'm in the schools probably 3 or 4 times a week. And just last week, we had an open house at my son's school. And it's one of the schools that's on the, high needs list. And I had this sense of relief when I realized that he was in portables for most of the day. Okay, so when you walk into the schools and the floors are uneven and the water fountains don't work and they're having problems with heaters, and the heaters, if they turn them on, they're too loud for them to teach. You'll understand. It really is about getting the communities into the schools.
Okay, thank you. And rebuttals? Arwen? Okay. Okay, any other questions from the audience? Mary, you had a second question. Would you like to take another round?
This question comes from Jim Stauffer, who's on the school board in Squim. He told me about this. Last year, the state legislature considered a bill that would mandate sex education K through 12 across the state. It didn't get finalized into a final bill form, but those who are supporting it are planning to come forward again this year. I personally think sex education is an important part of the school district duty. My question is, do you support quality sex education? in the schools.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And Katie, you get to answer first.
So as a board member, I would be there. I would want to keep the kids in school, and if sex education is the way to prevent dropouts, I'm all in. Okay, so, you know, high school graduation rates are important, and getting kids to the high school graduation is very important. I also think that we have a healthcare clinic that the board has worked really hard on getting a free healthcare clinic put into the high school, and this provides some support. I think the quality education is fundamental. I think that it keeps them in school. That's what quality education would do. So that's all. Thanks.
Okay, Arwen?
States and districts that don't have a good sex education program have astronomical rates of teen pregnancy and STDs. There's always an element of people, of parents, who say, no, this is a conversation I want to have with my kids. Every parent is given a form. Do you consent to your child being part of sex education? I always worried about the kids who said that no, they couldn't be part of it. Age-appropriate sex education. I mean, as a kindergartner, it's not talking about sex. There's, you know, it's a gradual workup of basic facts. You know, age-appropriate. Yes, absolutely, I support this. It's absolutely necessary, and our kids will be healthier, happier, and have better futures if they know this now.
Thank you. And rebuttal? No? Okay. Arwen, anything else?
No.
Okay. Any other questions?
My name is Steve Behrman. The schools are part of our community, and yet we still have a bit of isolation between schools and community. What can the school board do? What can the schools do to build stronger relationships between the community and the schools, both the business community, the civic community, and the public? Thank you.
Okay, Arwen, your question.
Oh, that's, if any of you have seen Bowling for Columbine, it's a very old movie. I believe it was Michael Moore made that movie. Our community doesn't do that thing anymore. It's really sad. Society is changing. Involving people no longer actually involves bringing people physically into the schools. For the younger generations, you may not realize it, but millennials are almost 40. It's kind of stunning, but millennials are almost 40 years old. They're going to be grandparents pretty soon. They have a different way of doing things, and trying to bring them physically to places isn't going to work. They're in their lives. Bringing them into the school community will probably have to involve some sort of an online, something more than just a website. Thank you.
Okay, Katie?
So how to build the relationship. So off the top of my head, I would say that, you know, our superintendent has done a really good job of starting this engagement with the community. He's been very proactive. He invites people to coffee with him. He's started doing school tours. And one of the things about business owners is also just the career and technical education programs have working groups that they invite people in from the community to help advise at their advisory groups for their programs. And a few years ago, I served on the wood shop advisory group where they explained to us about the curriculum and how they were matching it up to what the certifications that were needed for different business styles, and where they could go on with their certifications. And thanks.
And rebuttal? Okay. Any other questions? You guys had some good ones. Well, if that's it, thank you very much, candidates. It takes a lot of courage to run for office, and we appreciate that you're giving it a shot. So to wrap up, we'll now move to our candidates' 2-minute closing statements, and we'll reverse the order from the opening statements, and this time we'll begin with Arwen. So Arwen, 2 minutes.
I'm not sure what more can be said that's already been said. I am a person, I put things together that people don't connect. That was one of my strengths as a reporter, is I would hear a piece of information in one place and a piece of information in the other place that seemed to be unrelated, and I put them together and make something work. I figure things out. Using disparate pieces of information is, it's how you figure out how to get things done outside of the box. And when a district is so confined by state law, sometimes thinking out of the box to get something done is what is needed. It's not all data. It's not all process. Sometimes it's just having an amazing imagination, which I work to do that. And sometimes it's a little too amazing, I think. So, you know, kids are what I've always been about. I was the Kool-Aid mom when my kids were growing up. I was the household where all the kids gathered. And some of those kids, I wanted to cry because they weren't going anywhere. And it was very sad. I could figure out which ones were not going to be able to get anywhere because of what was happening in their life. It wasn't their schools. It was their families. It was situations that no kid should be in. Unfortunately, a school district can't do anything about that. But what I can do is fight for those kids. Thank you. Please vote for me.
I've chosen to run for school board because as a parent with 2 children in the district, I want the best possible outcomes for our school. Like you, I want excellent schools that provide a safe and healthy learning environment. I believe we can achieve this by supporting the potential of all students. I believe we can, I am ready to increase my level of commitment to our to help our students thrive. I have the right combination of skills, expertise, and meaningful connections within our community to help the board move forward. I also have the demonstrated ability to work as part of a team, manage projects, make data-informed decisions, and have the desire to find common ground. 2 things I'd like to accomplish as a board member are really about increasing graduation rates and passing a levy. Although our current graduation rates are at 81%, and this is above state average, the high school needs to keep students engaged and to broaden their community and technical education programs. Graduation rates are just a trailing indicator, a way of saying that this is the work we did. I'd like to pass the levy, make a solid plan around the most immediate facility needs. We need a strong, clear message to the community, strong possible collaboration between schools, the city, and the county. The lack of investment in our schools is holding this community back. Community leaders need to be fully on board with the campaign to pass it. And this is a long-term investment in our values. Join me and make this happen. Vote for me, and thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you again, everyone. Let's give a big round of applause. So we've got a few minutes. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll convene back here at 7:05 for the hospital commissioner race. And as I mentioned earlier, restrooms and drinking fountain are out in the foyer, and feel free to mingle and chat with candidates. Okay, let's go ahead and get started then with the second panel of the evening. All right, so for this one, the candidates are running for Commissioner of Olympic Medical Center, or also known as OMC, also known as Clallam County Hospital District Number 2. There are 7 members of the OMC Board of Commissioners. The hospital service area is divided into 3 districts. 2 commissioners are elected from each district, and 1 commissioner is elected at large. Candidates must live in the district, but all voters within the hospital service area vote on all commissioners. There are 3 seats up for election in November. 1 race is uncontested. The candidates for the other 2 seats are with us here tonight. We have them all on the same panel, and you can see from their name cards that Mr. Adkisson, Ms. Henninger are running for position 1, and Ms. Hordyk and Mr. Bowen are running for position 2. As with the previous candidates, OMC candidates will make 3-minute or less opening statements, and then it will be your turn. Your questions can be for one or all of the candidates, but all 4 of them will have a chance to respond. You'll have 30 seconds to ask your question, and the candidates will have 1 minute to answer. With 4 candidates on the same panel, it would be logistically challenging to include rebuttals, so we won't offer rebuttals for these candidates. So once again, we want to give everyone in the audience the chance to ask a question before taking follow-ups or multiple questions from the same person. Please come to the mic and give your name before you ask your question. Raise your hand if you'd like an index card. If you can't come to the mic, write down your question and be sure to put your name on the card. We will close the forum by giving each candidate up to 2 minutes for closing remarks, and this will happen in the reverse order in which they filed. So candidates, we've asked you to introduce yourself in your 3-minute or less opening statement by covering the following points. First, tell us why you are running for hospital commissioner. Second, what are your qualifications to be a member of the OMC Commission? And last, what do you see as the major issue currently facing Olympic Medical Center? And if elected, how would you address it? So that's a lot of ground to cover in 3 minutes, but I'm sure you all have a lot to say. And in the order they filed for office, let's hear first from the candidates for position 1. So Nate, you're first.
Thank you. I'm Nate Adkisson. I've been married for 14 years. My wife and I have 2 girls, ages 9 and 10. I was born and raised in Kitsap County, went to Western Washington University and graduated in 2002. I moved to Sequim in 2006, and I currently work for a successful mortgage company. What made me decide to run is I'd like to be a voice on the board for patients in our communities. The issues that I find most important, number 1, are budget cuts. OMC leadership is responsible for any operational decisions related to reimbursement cuts. It is important for commissioners to assist in communicating with the public on how those changes will impact their care. As a board member, I will work to build a network of community members to continuously advocate at the national and state levels and prevent future cuts, to prevent future cuts and restore funding. I'd like to improve transparency. I'd advocate for OMC to make upfront transparent pricing a part of their strategic plan. There's currently an Excel spreadsheet on the website. It is no use to a patient when you don't know the code of what procedure was actually done. It's enough transparency to meet the requirements of CMS, but it's of little help to patients. 3 are wage garnishments. As a financial professional, I see the impact of medical debt that medical debts have on their patients, especially the working class. I've witnessed the impacts of collections, judgments, and garnishments. With the skyrocketing cost of medical care, it's not just a local, but it's a national issue. I will advocate the OMC review their current policies and recommend that they monitor and measure the effects those policies have on their patients and adjust accordingly. 4, school bonds. The best possible healthcare is made up of talented medical professionals. I believe the OMC board should not just endorse school bonds, but take a more active role in assisting our schools in passing reasonable bonds. Many medical professionals with children consistently rule out Clallam County when they look at our schools. We need to make sure our local schools are not the reason OMC is dismissed as a place of employment. In closing, OMC has had a tremendous success in improving quality, expanding services, and increasing access to care over the last 10 years. Uncertainty is increasing, and it's going to be essential for any board member to work closely with the community, OMC professionals, and the board to continue this trend. What OMC needs now are new ideas to help navigate the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Anne Marie?
First of all, good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum, and to all the members of the public who've come out this evening. As you know, my name is Anne Marie Henninger, and I'm a wife, a mother, and a nurse. I was born and raised in Seattle, attended high school at Seattle Prep, followed by university in Tacoma at the University of Puget Sound, and then nursing school at St. Louis University in Missouri. My husband and I married in 1991 and began our careers and family in Seattle. In 1996, we relocated to the Olympic Peninsula, where we expanded our family to include 7 amazing children. I'm currently working as a nurse consultant, nurse manager, and nurse sonographer. I'm running for the hospital commission because I'm passionate about the physical well-being, brain health, and overall welfare of my community. I seek to serve using my skills, and I consider our public hospital district an incredible treasure, worthy of protection, preservation, and stewardship. My qualifications include 29 years as a registered nurse in staff, management, and volunteer roles, direct involvement on and experience with how boards function, active community volunteerism since 1996, dedication to learning all I can about this position, and the knowledge, desire, skills, and time to serve and serve successfully. The top 5 issues facing our hospital district include reimbursement for services, advocacy at the local, state, and federal levels, recruitment and retention of a workforce, substance use disorders, impact and treatment, and finally, healthcare provider access. To address these issues as a commissioner, I will serve as a collaborator with my fellow commissioners and on the subcommittees of the board. I will help set governance, strategic, and budgetary policies to help achieve the district's goals. I will also uphold every applicable local, state, and federal law. The purpose of a public hospital district is to deliver hospital, health, and wellness services to the citizens within the district. The purpose of the Board of Commissioners is to provide governance and shape strategic and budgetary policies for the district. All day-to-day operations are delegated to the CEO. My number 1 priority is service to the hospital district citizens. My number 2 priority is collaboration with fellow commissioners. And I come before you tonight as the most qualified candidate for this position, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Jean?
Hi, I'm Jean Hordyk. I'm a graduate of Port Angeles High School, Peninsula College, and Eastern Washington State College. I have been involved in the community health care for many years, including co-chairing 2 years a community health fair. I'm original board member and past president of Hospice of Clallam County. I served on the North Olympic Health Planning Council from its conception to its demise, and represented the council on the certificate of need, for the state of Washington, developing for the hospice licensing. I have served for many years on the United Way Board, as well as other community services. My service on the Board of Commission for the past 20 years, I have served on all the board committees, including the Budget, Ethics, Advocacy, and Strategic Plan. I also served as board secretary and a past president. I chose to run for the Board of Commissioners for a 5th term because of the many challenges ahead in the healthcare. These include the retention and recruitment of physicians and healthcare workers, the ever-changing mandates and regulations from both the state and federal level that come with no financial assistance to enforce them, and the rising cost of insurance and its insecurities and its outcome. My goal serving on the board is to provide continuity, work with the board, the administration, and the staff to meet the challenges ahead in our community, and the kind of services our community has expected. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And Ted?
Hello, I'm Ted Bowen. I want to say that I'm very passionate about healthcare and have a great respect for the people who work in this field. I have worked in safety and security in many areas of the healthcare field, from emergency rooms, MAT clinics, Western State Forensics Unit, outpatient programs, and voluntary commitment units. I have seen firsthand, like many people have in hospital experiences, it can either be the best day of your life or the worst day of your life for both patients and staff. The reason I'm pursuing a position on this board is to use my experiences and perspectives and ideas to help recruit and retain high-quality staff, as well as ensure patient and staff safety and security, and aid in patient and staff satisfaction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, candidates. Now, audience, it will be your turn. And remember, it's 30 seconds for your question and 1 minute for the candidate's response. Again, we'll have about 45 minutes or so for your questions. Please line up at the microphone, and when it's your turn, give your name before you ask your question. And while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and ask the first question. And this will be for all of you. So please give us your thoughts about what OMC can or should be doing to attract and retain primary care providers. Okay, so Nate?
First, I do believe that improving our school buildings is a major issue with retaining our healthcare providers, and the board taking an active role in helping our school districts, both in Sequim and Port Angeles, do that, I think is very important. Secondly, I think we need to be active with our other agencies and groups to improve our economic opportunities, whether it's with working with the EDC and revitalizing downtown Port Angeles, improving, adding more options for the arts, supporting the new field house, and doing other things that will improve our economic opportunities here in Clallam County.
Okay, thank you. And Anne-Marie?
So at the moment, we actually are pretty well set with providers at Olympic Medical Center. There are very few vacancies for primary healthcare providers, whether they're physicians or advanced practice clinicians like nurse practitioners or physician assistants. But ways that I see that we can not only recruit providers, but retain them, is to make sure that our schools are high quality so that families coming to the area for the natural beauty and the amazing opportunity to work at OMC also want to stay here and make sure their kids get a good education. Secondly, we've got partnerships in place already, specifically with Peninsula College. And that's an asset to our organization. A lot of the folks that go through the nursing program or the MA program, medicine assistant program, graduate and they come to work at OMC. So that's homegrown. And then finally, I would say that we need to make sure there's enough housing for people when they arrive that they can afford to stay. Thank you.
And Jean, your thoughts?
The hospital works very hard at recruiting and retention. I think over the years, we have developed a wonderful working relationship with all our physicians. In the beginning, it was a little tough there because they had their ways as independents and we have ours. But we're not the only ones looking for healthcare providers of all means. It's a competition from everywhere looking for this job, and as new positions become available, we're competing. There are reasons people come here because they want to stay here, or they want to be in a quiet place, and there are reasons people leave for family reasons. It was a poor mix, whatever, but we're all in this together, not just Olympic Healthcare or Olympic Medical Center. And that's it. How's that?
Okay, Ted.
So, can you guys hear me? Okay. So I'm going to keep it short for you. I really think it comes down to wellness and what the hospital can offer as far as spiritual and mental well-being for staff. Whether that is a gym, a facility, gym passes. A lot of these things I don't know if they're doing yet, but these are just some suggestions I would bring. More award programs for staff, just wellness in general. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like we have our first audience question. Before you go ahead and ask it though, Jean, I'm going to ask you when you answer. Jean, can you get a little closer to the mic when you answer when it's your turn? There we
I'm
go.
Susan Mullins, and this question is for Anne Marie. And first I want to thank you for being a foster parent, because I'm going to quote from an article about your foster parenting. So Olympic Medical Center utilizes best scientific practices when requiring their staff to get flu shots each year to keep their vulnerable patients, the elderly and medically compromised, safe. You stated in a 2015 Seattle Times article regarding the state's requirement that foster families obtain flu vaccinations when caring for a child under the age of 2. The vaccine itself has risks and is no guarantee that one will not come down with the illness, and that this decision is not evidence-based.
Okay.
Given this,
you need to ask your question, please.
I am. Given this, help us understand why you would want to help lead an organization that doesn't reflect your values and beliefs.
Yep.
So my issue with the flu vaccine at that time for foster families was that the state was requiring it of all foster families and their children, but they were not requiring it of the biological parents or daycare providers or anyone else who was coming in contact with the child. So I felt that it was important that if the state was going to require foster families to have that vaccination, that all people who came in contact with the child would have that vaccination. And I also, as a citizen who knows a lot of folks who are employed at OMC, I know that OMC employees have the option to take the flu vaccine or to not take the flu vaccine, and I respect that they would have that option.
Okay, thank you. And Jean, you have the opportunity to answer as well.
I'm not aware of the foster care requirements, but the hospital does have flu shots. In fact, I just got mine from there yesterday. If a staff person chooses not to have a flu shot, which is their choice, they must be masked during the time of service and employment at the hospital at that time.
Okay, and Ted?
Again, I'm not familiar with the foster care portion, but I do support that the staff member has a choice.
Okay, Nate?
I think that the healthcare workers at OMC should have flu shots to protect patients who are vulnerable to flu. However, the option to not have one is available, and they should follow all procedures to make sure that they're not potentially infecting patients at OMC.
Okay, thank you, candidates. And next question.
Jessica Hackett. In March of this year, the Department of Health and Human Services awarded the Obria Group $1.7 million through Title X. Title X was intended to fund healthcare providers who offer comprehensive reproductive healthcare services to low-income households. Obria's express goal is to replace Planned Parenthood as the National Reproductive Health Care Center of choice for women, but Obria does not recommend or provide any form of birth control other than the rhythm method. Access to reliable contraception reduces poverty and increases social mobility.
You need to ask your question, please.
Do you think that there would be a public health consequences if hormonal contraceptions were not available to women?
Okay, let's see. Anne Marie started first, so Jean, you get to start first this time.
The question was, should there be access, or what was the direct question?
Do you think there would be public health consequences if hormonal contraceptives were not available to women, particularly low-income women?
Well, if there were healthcare services for them, I don't think there would be a problem. Some people accept care and some don't. I think it's, no matter if it's there or not, it's a person's choice. I don't know. I can't answer that. Okay? Be fair, to be honest with you.
Okay. Ted?
So that I understand it correctly, are we just talking about birth control, like birth control pills?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I think if a woman wants to take birth control, that's great. Was that your question?
No, my question is, do you think there would be public health consequences if women were not able to access hormonal birth control?
I guess I'd have to know more about that question and research it more. So thank you.
Okay, Nate?
I do believe that there would be consequences if there were no access to birth control. And I think it's important that there's full access to all birth control options on the peninsula.
So I would first say that there are already public health consequences to contraceptives that are in our water system and the soil. So that's impacting our society and on a scientific or species level. Secondly, there is potential for public health consequences for people who don't have access to contraceptives, but there are alternative methods of contraception in addition to chemical or barrier methods.
Okay, thank you, candidates.
Hi, I'm Marcia Limoges from SWIM. I'm also can you hear me?
No.
Sorry. Get closer to the microphone.
It's my fault.
It's on now. My name is Marcia Limoges. I'm from SWIM. I am also a nurse who is employed by Olympic Medical Center. And I also have concerns because as board members, you not only have oversight for the hospital, but also for Olympic medical providers, which includes pediatrics, primary care, OBGYN, all of those service lines. And I also want to know that the people on our board are consistent with the standards of the National Preventive Health Care Task Force. And therefore, that includes childhood vaccinations.
State your question, please.
Okay. What are your views on allowing parents to take exemptions for their children based on religious beliefs for childhood vaccinations? We'll stop there.
Yeah. Okay, and we'll start with Ted.
Okay. As far as someone's religious beliefs, I believe if that's their belief, then they should have the choice to say, I don't want my kids vaccinated. Thank you.
Okay. Nate?
From a religious standpoint, I do think there are times when you should be able to make the decision based on your religious values not to have vaccinations. However, when it comes to kids in public schools, I do believe that children should be vaccinated. It's easy to not vaccinate and not be for it when most of the population is vaccinated and you're protected. But it is a public health risk if we do allow large numbers of people in our community not to vaccinate. So I believe that you should vaccinate. However, I mean, there are freedoms in this country when it comes to your religious beliefs not to vaccinate. So.
I think that parents have the opportunity and obligation to make informed decisions for their kids in their best interest of their kids. And so to that end, what I don't care for is people saying, I'm not going to vaccinate as sort of a cult movement, if you will, like just going along with the crowd. I think that whatever the decision is, whether it's where you're going to have your baby or if you're going to breastfeed or not, or whatever it might be, you need to make an informed decision. And that's the most important thing that I would say about vaccinations or just about any other topic. The decision needs to be an informed one.
I think it's sad in many ways that parents, when you become a parent, you know your responsibility for the health of your child. And it has been proven that if you don't have your child vaccinated, then they are exposed to many things, and you're putting their child's health at risk, and you are putting everyone else at risk when you choose not to. It's been proven with polio and with the measles that vaccination works. We're having more and more people choosing not to, and look at what's happening with all of this measles and what have you who are coming back, and it's a shame. There's no reason why we shouldn't have it all eradicated by now. And I'm sorry, I firmly believe all children should be vaccinated.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Wickman from Port Angeles. This question is addressed to Anne, although I would like to hear what the others say about it. Anne, I want to know if you accept the following medical procedures as part of general medical care and thus would support the availability of these procedures in our hospital district, and there are 4 that I want to know. Do you accept the full range of contraceptives, including implants, pills, etc.? Yes, well, there's 4. Do you accept voluntary sterilization for both males and females? Do you accept the access to death with dignity? And do you accept the right to access for abortion?
Okay, so thank you for asking that. Oops. I apologize. Thank you for asking the question. I would like you to see Department of Health Form 346-107 that was signed on August 30th by Eric Lewis, who's the CEO of the hospital. It's available on the hospital website. And the title of it is Hospital Reproductive Health Services. And it's a checklist of all the services that are available at OMC. And that will answer your question. The board has very little to say around the day-to-day operations of the hospital district. Those are delegated to Eric in his role as CEO. And so this is what I've been able to use at forums to show people this is what's available at OMC. And I got it off the website. I would encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
What's your position?
Doesn't answer the question for me.
Okay, so as a board of commissioners, I sort of answered it in my introductory statement, which is I will uphold every local, state, and federal law.
But these are specific.
And the hospital has, I'm not interested in going in and subverting these or overturning these, if that answers your question.
We haven't seen it, so we don't know what it says.
Okay, Jean?
An acute care hospital may not be the appropriate setting for all reproductive health services. Some reproductive health services are not appropriate, are available, are most appropriate and available as an outpatient service, such as physician offices or clinics, depending on the specific patient circumstances.
Okay. Ted?
I am just not educated enough on this subject to give you an adequate answer. Thank you.
Okay. Nate?
As a public hospital receiving public funds, I think it's important to ensure that there's access and information to all of those services and options that you had mentioned.
My name's Nancy Field. I live in Sequim. I haven't seen the form. I know that there's a new checklist that each hospital has to fulfill. I'm not sure if it only addresses inpatient services or whether it recognizes that you as board members are responsible for all the outpatient services of Olympic medical physicians. My question is, with regard to that list of 4 services that Mary mentioned, the state law requires all hospital districts to provide abortion. And so, Anne, what would your response be when Eric follows the law by providing abortion as required, elective abortion at Olympic Medical Center, either inpatient or outpatient? Are you a timekeeper?
Yes, she is.
Okay, 30 seconds.
So you're asking what would my response be if Eric were to
follow
the law? Right. So as I've said, I will uphold every local, state, and federal law that is applicable to healthcare at Olympic Medical Center.
So you'd stay on the
Period.
board if it offers abortion?
You answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
Nate?
The question again? Sorry.
The question is, if the hospital were to follow the law which requires that it provide elective abortion, what would your reaction be?
I would support that decision. And there's also, I mean, other public hospitals around the country have been sued and had to expend expenditures to enforce the law. And there is risk of that costing taxpayers here and money that would go to having to defend that if they don't enforce the law.
Okay. Jean?
You have to have a physician willing to do the service, and you have to have a staff that agrees to do it, and it has to be in writing. It's not a, what I want to say on that. The hospital has never provided abortion from its beginning in 1952 on. It has never done, and most public hospitals have not. You have to have a physician willing to do it, and you have to have a staff that's willing to do it. And if we had one, it would probably be done. And I would support it if it did, but at this time we have no one willing to do so.
Okay, Ted, same question.
I believe the job of being on the board is to uphold state, federal, local laws. So I would stick with what the law says. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Looks like there's one.
Jenny Peterson from Sequim. I missed the original question, but I wrote down something I did not understand. Anne Marie had said something about the contraceptives in the water and the soils. Could she explain that? I'm not aware that there's contraceptives in our water anywhere.
So the public health consequence was the question.
Yes.
And so if you look into the literature and the research, we have a lot of women taking oral contraceptives, and those hormonal contraceptives obviously are in her bloodstream, can be in her urine, are then into the sewer system and are dissipated out into groundwater and soil. And so what that's demonstrating in, for example, streams, where there's a high concentration of those chemicals, we have animals that are being malformed and misshapen from their original anatomical design.
Okay, mix this up a little bit. Ted, why don't you go next?
I don't know enough about it, unfortunately. Sorry.
Okay, Jean? Okay, and Nate?
There is actually a lot of evidence of a lot of different chemicals, antibiotics, drugs that are getting into our water system. Anybody that follows the salmon issues in our area, there's been research done on salmon samples with multiple things and chemicals, drugs, all kinds of stuff in our waterways. So there definitely is leaching and issues with a lot of environmental things related to chemicals and stuff getting into our waterways and our water systems. It's absolutely happening. And there's a lot of research currently going on at the University of Washington to determine how that impacts fish, and if some of those things are actually some of the reasons why we have issues with our salmon runs in our area. So it is happening, and it's a real thing.
Okay, thank you. And Norma?
Norma Turner, could you all talk a little bit about the economics of healthcare? Why is it the hospital can accept for a procedure X amount as long as the insurance company pays for it, but if a private patient, they have to pay Y? So if the hospital can accept an amount for a procedure from reimbursement from an insurance company, why can they not then bill a private pay patient the same amount? And as an example, all right, I can't give an example, it's my time's up.
Okay, let's see, Jean, you haven't started first, so your turn.
I don't have an answer to that because I didn't know that. I know you're all looking weird at me at this, but insurance is an issue that is ongoing. It will never be settled, how insurance or how people are paid. And we're still working on it. I mean, there's no answer to it. And I can't answer that, Norma. I don't know.
Okay, Anne Marie?
Okay. So I'm not 100% sure I understand the question very well. What I would say is that Jean is absolutely correct that the whole insurance piece of things is incredibly complicated. And so if I don't have insurance, are you asking if I could be billed at a lower rate because I don't have insurance?
I'm just saying, we'll make an example since I ran out
Yeah,
of
please,
time.
I would appreciate your
Okay,
example.
there's a procedure and the cost is $60,000.
Yes.
Or I'm thinking about $60,000. If you bill that to the insurance company, if you're lucky, you'll get maybe 30 from the insurance company. But for a private patient with no insurance, they will get a bill for $60,000. So why can't the hospital then negotiate with individuals and say, if the insurance pays 30, all you have to pay is 30. But
Thank
they
you.
don't. They have to
Thank
pay
you
the 60.
for clarifying that. So I had the opportunity to speak with the billing department around issues related to this, and what I found was that they are incredibly amenable to working with patients on an individual basis, and that if I need a procedure done and the doctor gives me the code for it, I can go to billing and I can find out an estimate of all the costs associated with it, and they will work with me to make a payment plan or a no fee, no interest, extended period of time to pay. They also have a $5 million in charity care that was issued last year, and so that is happening where people are getting diminished or lowered bills.
Okay, thank you. And Nate?
A lot of this is related to educating patients on what their options are. What happens a lot of times is you'll go in and there is no upfront pricing transparency of what something's going to cost you. You get a massive bill and it's unpayable. And so people put their heads in the sand and they ignore it, and it turns into something bigger. So it's really important that the hospital and the medical community in general spend a lot of time and effort to ensure that people know what they're paying up front and know what their options are up front when they're getting the service, so that they can make those appropriate decisions and plan and work out those payment options beforehand and not after the fact. Because when you get that massive bill and it's $10,000 and at the end of every month you don't have $100 left in your bank account, there's not a lot of options for you to choose from. And so people just ignore it, and that's when things turn into collections judgments and wage garnishments. So the front end portion of that is hugely important. And that's where things in the medical industry need to improve dramatically.
Thank you. And Ted?
I agree. I think the hospital can do a better job of educating their patients on, I don't know, there's sliding scale fees and payment plans, and there is options out there. Thank you.
Okay. Jessica?
Jessica Hackett. The contraceptive method that I believe you were referring to, Anne Marie, was the rhythm method, which requires women to take their daily temperature as well as to track their fluids. Do you think that that is a reasonable contraceptive method for low-income women, particularly considering the fact that it does not take into account hormonal changes in women due to stress or illness?
So the method you're referring to is not the rhythm method. It's called natural family planning, or the fertility awareness method. And it is easy to learn. It can be used and learned by anyone of any socioeconomic status or level. It is used in underdeveloped or third world countries with great success. And so I absolutely believe that it's a easy to learn, easy to use method, and it does take into account hormonal influences and stress, and the changes that those have, or the impacts that those have on a woman's cycle.
Okay, thank you. And G? No comment. Ted?
I just don't know enough about it, so sorry.
Okay. Nate?
Regardless of the method that's being discussed, there needs to be easy access to low-cost birth control in every community, and it's important. And I don't think invest enough in making sure that, especially low income, but everyone has access to all birth control options.
If I'm allowed, I have a final yes or no follow-up.
Okay. Is there anybody else had any questions? Okay.
Do you support the Obria Group in their expressed mission to replace Planned Parenthood as the national healthcare reproductive center of choice for women?
Ted?
Can I have some more detail on what you mean?
So Obria is the clinic that I mentioned in my first question. They were begun in 1980 by a Catholic private businesswoman who, upon receiving her own abortion, determined that she would like to try and encourage as many women as possible not to choose that option.
Okay.
Obria offers... Oh, sorry.
Yes, ask your question.
Again, because I just had to ask you, I will like to do more research on that issue. Thank you.
Okay, and Jean, your thoughts?
I'm with Ted. I'll do more research on it.
What? Okay. Anne-Marie?
Me. So, first of all, as a board member, I don't see that this has anything to do with my job as a hospital commissioner. I think that OBRIA is doing fantastic things across the country, and they are empowering women, and I fully support that. And they are also expanding their services locally and nationwide to provide well woman care, physical exams for men, women, and children, lactation assistance, and education and teaching for parenting, which is actually approved of by local court systems. When a family goes into CPS dependencies, the courses that OBRIA is offering qualify with the court to meet the requirements there. So I think that OBRIA's got an amazing amount of potential and is doing fantastic things.
That's a yes. Thank you.
That's a yes.
Nate?
I think that any organization, Planned Parenthood, or BRIA that's receiving public funds to provide services, medical services, should provide access to all services that are legal under the law. And I personally support Planned Parenthood and what they do. And if other organizations are out there receiving funds from the public, as long as they're providing all of the available services and information on how to obtain those services, they should be able to do so.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
My name is Judith Parker from SWIM. I have a question directed mainly to Anne-Marie, but others may wish to participate in the answer. It seems to me that between OBRIA and the hospital, there is at least a conflict of values, if not a conflict of interest. One institution is clearly wanting to limit women's choices. The other one is bound by law and every other method to every other mission to educate women and to let them have their full range of decision-making facts. So,
your question.
The question is, I want to hear the resolution between what looks to me like a conflict of values and perhaps of interest.
I don't see that same conflict that you might see.
Okay. Nate?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. And Jean? Okay. Ted? Okay. Fair enough. Any other questions?
Nancy Fields, SWIM. In 2009, after the voters of Clallam County voted for death with dignity with over 60% approval, both Ann and Jean publicly testified at the hospital board that they hoped the hospital would not participate in death with dignity. The law requires every hospital to state whether it will or will not participate, and each hospital has a choice, and each of you asked the hospital not to, and that is the current situation. Will either of you change your position in light of your statements today?
Okay, Nate, why don't you go ahead and start this one?
I support death with dignity, and I think that there needs to be access to information for end-of-life decisions, and access to those options at our hospital.
Anne Marie? I support the hospital's current position on this issue.
I'm only one member of the board, and I support it because the board passed it. Does that answer your question?
No, my question was, would you, in light of what you stated earlier, would you change it now so that this hospital offers everything that's legally available? Because you said earlier you don't want them to offer it.
That's correct. I don't, but I stand with the hospital in their decision. I support the hospital decision.
Not to offer it.
Well, the board voted to offer it.
No, they don't offer it. They don't offer it.
Well, that again is one of the things that the physicians and all have to sign off that they support it or don't support it as a staff.
No.
Yes, the board signs off, they do or they don't.
The board, yes.
No, I mean, the staff. The staff says, yes, I support this.
Okay.
It's the board's decision.
You ask your question.
I answered it.
Okay, fair enough. Ted?
I believe as the board members, they're supposed to uphold their regulations, the laws, state and federal and local. That's what I would do.
I think we got everybody. Next question.
Oh, Marcia Rady from SQUIM. This is for everybody, just a short question. Do you support the MAT clinic?
Okay. Ted?
I absolutely do support the MAT clinic. I believe with the right staff and the right healthcare security, it'll be amazing and help a lot of people. Thank you.
Jean?
I support it. It is necessary. Healthcare is everyone's concern. Everyone has to be involved, and if it's for our patients, it's going to keep a lot of patients out of our emergency room, and it's going to help a lot of people. I mean, everyone thinks it's just homeless that are going to be faced with it. It is the whole community. Your neighbor could be one of those people that needs it. Somebody as a relative may need that care. So it's not just the homeless. It is our responsibility as a community to provide the health care for everyone. And these people, if they're homeless or not, need that service. And it's Jamestown is stepping up to help meet that, then so will be it with them.
Where did she go? Oh, there you are. So I think that the medication-assisted treatment facility has amazing promise. I had the opportunity to go to the Swinomish Tribes Clinic and spend a day, and I toured it and was able to ask loads and loads of questions. So my concerns and fears were allayed. I think that as a healthcare provider now and as a potential hospital commissioner, I have to be about the health and welfare of my entire community. And we have a pretty significant issue with substance use disorders, and those people are not to be stigmatized. They are to be treated with compassion and decent quality health care.
I do believe that the MAT treatment is the most effective option to deal with the epidemic. Given the division and the conflict that it's caused in SQUIM, I think that SQUIM should create an accountability and oversight board made up of proponents, opponents, health and safety professionals to issue joint recommendations to the community regarding safety, the location, community impacts that it'll have, and provide continuous oversight of it when it is built.
Theresa, can I add something quickly?
We're not doing rebuttals.
It's not a rebuttal, it's just an add-on to my original comment.
You can cover it in your closing remarks.
Okay.
Okay, Norma?
Yes, I'm confused after that last interchange. I assume that OMC does have the right to die with dignity. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, you're right.
I'm right, they do have it.
No,
Thank you.
no, there's no access.
There is no
That's my
access for the
confusion.
simple reason that a physician has to sign on to agree to participate in it in the hospital. And there is no physician in the hospital that has agreed to participate within the hospital. They can provide the service, recommend them, but they do it at home.
Did any of the other candidates want to respond to that?
It's still fuzzy.
Okay. Ellen Fetchett. So I pose the question, why can death with dignity not be done in the hospital? You've said there's absolutely no doctors that are willing to participate
Within the hospital. Oh.
Are there any other questions?
Mary Wegman from Port Angeles again. This is a general question for all four of you. OMC is a public hospital controlled by the people of the county. Can you state your commitment to keeping OMC a secular, non-religious, public county hospital in the future? Given, the reason I ask that is because there's been so many hospitals in Washington State that have been bought out by religious entities.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here. Nate.
I absolutely am 100% committed to keeping our hospital locally controlled and at all, and to keep affiliations of larger conglomerate institutions out of our hospital.
Okay, Anne Marie.
I agree. I think that our control of this hospital district needs to stay local, not New Jersey, not Seattle, not Denver. I think that we have a partnership with Swedish, which is connected with Providence for our electronic health record, which is a fortunate collaboration. But one of the reasons I decided to run 2 years ago was for that very reason, to keep the control of our hospital district local.
Okay. Jean?
We are very committed to keeping our hospital a public hospital. The unfortunate thing is that more and more public hospitals are being taken over by groups, regardless of whatever, if it's secular or a private hospital or what have you. It's what's happening, unfortunately. As the cost goes up, it's very hard to meet some of those needs. And many community hospitals, at least one a month, if not more, are being taken over by private hospitals or closing completely. I know we work very hard as a board and as a staff to keep it a public hospital. But what the future brings, it's going to be very hard to say.
If elected, I would work hard with the board to keep it public. I believe that's what it should be.
Okay, well, thank you everyone. If there aren't any further questions, we will move on to the candidates' 2-minute closing statements. And for this round, we're going to do the reverse order from the opening statements. So this time, Ted, you're going to start, and you'll have 2 minutes for this, please.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I believe if we put more focus in wellness and staff mental, physical, and spiritual health, as well as the patients in Clallam County, we will see improvements in all aspects of the hospital and its patients. I really appreciate you all, and thank you.
Healthcare is changing, and it's changing by the month. Hospitals now are no longer focused on inpatient service. The focus is all on outpatient service. And as you know, you can only be admitted to the hospital under certain circumstances. But it's all focused on wellness now. That is our job. And I'm very passionate about Olympic Medical Center. Memorial goes, well, the hospital is Olympic Memorial. The service is under Olympic Medical Center. So I still stay OMC. And I'm very proud of it. And I'm very proud of the staff, the administration, and the board. We work well together. We have done our best to keep this hospital solvent, and we've done what we feel is very important. We must be doing things right because we've won many awards for our services, and you should be proud of that. We're the only rural hospital to receive recognized as one of the top rural hospitals in the country. We're the only one in this state. And I will work with the board and continue to work with the board to provide excellence in health care for all. Thank you.
So I deeply appreciate the support that I'm receiving during my campaign. It's been incredibly encouraging and uplifting to me. I'm also profoundly grateful to the 58% of voters who stood by their votes in support of my candidacy in the primary. Running for office has been a massively educational experience for me, and I'm constantly acquiring new information, meeting new people, and hearing a variety of viewpoints. I glean something from each and every contact, and I find it meaningful to engage respectfully with my fellow citizens, whether we agree or disagree on topics. Case in point, the MAT clinic in Sequim. I have been able to dialogue with people pro-MAT, anti-MAT, and we have been able to hear one another in a respectful manner. I don't like the polarization that's happening in my community, but I definitely appreciate the chance to speak with people one-on-one. I can assure you that when I'm elected, it will be in service to you, the citizens of Public Hospital District Number 2. You are my employers. As a commissioner, I will be a team member working together with my fellow commissioners, focusing on meeting and exceeding the physical, mental, and wellness healthcare needs of this community while practicing stewardship of OMC's resources. From interviewing current commissioners and OMC's leadership team, I realized there's a steep learning curve for this position. As a regular attendee at board meetings twice monthly for the last 2 years, I am well placed to hit the ground running with the knowledge I have gained. If you have specific questions or want more information, I invite you to visit my website at www.votehenninger.com. And finally, and most importantly, I ask for and appreciate your vote for me as the most qualified, experienced, and competent candidate for OMC Hospital Commissioner, District 1, Position 1. And thank you again to the League for hosting.
Thank you to the League again for having this forum today. If elected as your commissioner, I will bring a patient-focused perspective to the hospital board. The continuous changes and cuts to reimbursements, increased cost of providing care, and the aging population, I believe it'll be beneficial to have a commissioner with a strong financial background on the board. I'll bring outside of the bubble ideas, make informed and thoughtful decisions, and work to improve the patient financial experience. I'll be responsive to constituents, provide a consistent stream of communication, and fight to maintain and protect the independence of our hospital district. Thanks again for having me here today, and I hope you'll consider me for your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone. Let's give the candidates a round of applause. So before we close, I need to get a little closer. Before we close, it's time to ask if there are any other candidates who are running for office that are in the audience, and if so, please stand and introduce yourselves and tell us which office you are running for.
Thank you. I'm Tom Hightower. I'm running for Commissioner of OMC for District 3 for Seat 1. I was selected to the board about a year and a half ago because of a vacancy. And I'm running unopposed. That's why I'm not up there, which is a blessing in some ways. and the term is for 2 years. Because I filled a position that was vacated, I'm doing a 2-year vote now. I'll be back here in 21 to be talking to you again, I hope, if everything goes right. My background is I'm a registered nurse. I've got 40 years in healthcare. I started out as a bedside critical care nurse. In those subsequent 40 years, I've worked in numerous hospitals and numerous leadership roles in the hospitals. My wife, I retired here 5 years ago. My wife and I moved to Clallam County to build our first home, which we are on the west side of the county. And so and the reason I'm involved with this and being interested in continuing my opportunity to serve is that when I retired, one of the things I wanted to do was get involved in the community and to be involved with decisions and with the leadership of healthcare within the community. As an individual with many years of experience in healthcare and with healthcare experience, both clinical and from a leadership role, I believe I can be a valued, informed voice on board, and I want to, I'll hang around a little bit longer. If you have any questions for me, any question, I'll do anyone, but I would request your support and your vote come November. Thank you very much.
My name is Ray Henninger. I'm running for Clallam County Park and Recreation District number 1, which most people would know as the SARC. I was appointed to a position when there was a vacancy last year. I'm running unopposed, but looking forward to giving back to my community and keeping in tune with my wife, working towards the overall wellness of our community and the role that the Park and Recreation District provides to it. So, thanks.
I'm a retired public health nurse, and I'm running for Charter Review Commission District 2.
And I'm Judith Parker. I'm also running for Charter Review District 1. I'm looking forward to reconsideration of our Constitution.
Okay, well, I do have one more thing to ask of you, and that is to fill out one of the evaluation forms that you were given when you entered. If you didn't pick one up, I believe there's more out on the table. And then candidates, we'd also like it if you filled one out too. A couple other things. We're hoping you'll stick around to answer questions. It sounds like people may be looking for a little follow-up, so it'd be great if you could spend a little time mingling and maybe get a chance to talk to some of the other candidates that are running for offices too. Let's see, I wanted to mention too that there are a couple more forums scheduled in the next couple weeks, and we hope that you will be in attendance at those. The next one is Sunday, October 6th in the council chambers at the Sequim City Hall, and the start time for that one is 2 p.m. It will include 3 panels, candidates for District 3 Commissioner, the Sequim School Board, and County Commissioner District 1. And then on Tuesday, October 8th at 6 o'clock, back here in the Port Angeles chamber, we'll have the candidates for Port Angeles City Council on the first panel, and then speakers for and against the affordable housing sales tax on the second panel. And league volunteers have flyers with additional information about those if you'd like to. Thank you again to our timers this evening. That can be kind of complicated if you've never done it before, so you guys did great. Another super important thing is to remember that in Washington you can now register to vote up to and including on Election Day, which is November 5th this time. You can also go to votewa.gov to verify that your voter registration is up to date. And ballots will be mailed out to all voters on October 16th, and they must be postmarked or dropped in a drop box by November 5th, and those are all over the county now, so lots of options for that. So please remember to register and to vote, and thank you again for coming.